I'm going to be walking you through how you can start your first AI business. This is a big topic. In fact, the whole of AI with Kyle.com is really centered around this question. How can you personally do very well in this new age of AI where 9 to 5 jobs are becoming, let's say, less stable? What can you do to secure your income and to build something for the future? AI with Kyle.com, my website, is all about this question. But what I wanted to do is give you a quick overview of what this looks like from the top down. So a high level overview of what building an AI product looks like. Because I know for a lot of people, the idea is still very complicated. So I want to show you how to build your first one, and you can potentially have it done this afternoon. It will take you a few hours, whereas before it used to take months to build products. So we're going to be looking at why you should build a product, and we're going to be looking at what the thought process that needs to go into building a product looks like. And then we're going to be looking at the technical, how to actually build this. And I'm going to be giving you a prompt, which is going to walk you through the whole process when you plug it into Codex, Claude Code, or Lovable, your vibe coding tool of choice. But let's jump in first and have a look at why this is important to do. So what we're going to do for your first ever product, we're not going to overcomplicate it. We're going to build something very, very simple, something that solves one problem and it gives one clear result. And it allows us to easily market and take this out and to generate an income off it. We need to keep this simple for the first iteration. To make this more complicated, you can do more complex, more extensive things later, but we have to start somewhere. That's what we're going to be covering. First up, a lot of people ask me, well, what is the point about making an AI product? What's the point about wrapping up a process or a workflow or a prompt inside of a product and charging people money for it? There's no way they're going to pay me, right? Wrong. They will pay you. A couple of reasons why. So you are watching a live stream, or you're watching me, a stuffy British guy, talk about building with artificial intelligence. The rest of the world is not. They are not consuming this kind of content. They are instead, watching entertainment. They're watching funny things. They're watching video game videos. Not to dump on them, I watch them too. But you are right now watching this. That puts you in a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of people who are actually paying attention about how to use this stuff to build and create. Most people are not. So if you have built a tool, which is basically some ChatGPT prompts wrapped up in a nice interface, somebody puts in an input, runs it through some AI processes and gives them an output, and they pay you for that. You might be thinking, well, surely they can just go to ChatGPT themselves and run this. Surely they can go to Claude. Maybe they can just spin up their own version of Claude Code. Yes, yes, and yes, they 100% can. Does not mean they will. So of the people who could do this, which is everybody out there, very few people will think to. They will not think to do what your product does inside of ChatGPT. It just won't cross their mind that they could do it themselves. Of the people who realize, oh, I could use ChatGPT for this, a smaller percentage of them will actually be able to do this to a high enough quality. Maybe they'll spend a few hours fiddling around with prompts, fiddling around with the workflow. Sure, there will be some people who DIY. Most people will not be able to do it. So you're going to whittle down the field there as well. And then of the people who know they can use artificial intelligence to do this themselves, and of the people who have the ability to get it done, there are very few people who will actually have the time. They will much rather pay you $7 a month, $30 a month, whatever it is, to do it for them. People are time poor, especially businesses, and that's who you want to be selling to, businesses. You want to sell them a subscription, which is $50 a month or something, which is a rounding error for businesses' expenses. But you're going to, with that piece of software that you're building, you're going to be able to save them hours every single week, which is well worth the subscription. So just because people can build themselves using artificial intelligence, just because they can go to ChatGPT, does not mean they will, because they won't think of it, they won't know how to do it. And even if they know how to do it, most of them won't be bothered. So you're actually going to do it. That is the difference here. So there is plenty of space in the market, and I'm going to show you how we're going to carve out our own little space. So the key thing that you're going to be doing is standardizing, formalizing, and capturing a process. Now, what process is this going to be? I would highly recommend you choose something from within your own industry, something that you do on a daily basis, something people in your industry, people in your field of work have to do. They don't like doing, but it's something that has to be done every single day, maybe for hours. It could be doing some kind of assessment. It could be writing up notes. That's what gives you the advantage here, because it depends on your industry. And a really good way to find this out is basically to time block your day, start to record what you do inside of your job every single day. and see if there's anything in there that is taking hours every single week, but is very algorithmic, very non-creative, where you're basically getting the same inputs, you're running them through a process, maybe it's a spreadsheet, maybe you have to write up a report, whatever it is, and then you have an output at the end of it. Anything like that is extremely automatable, and that's where we're going to be focusing. But you need to work out what that is. And your secret sauce is going to be your ability to know how to run that workflow, because that's what you do in your 9 to 5. That's what you do anyway. So you're going to capture all of that process and workflow into an AI tool. So for example, I did this live the other week where I talked about my content system. I talked about the fact that I do a live stream every single day. That live stream then becomes a transcript, which is turned using artificial intelligence into short form video scripts and into a newsletter. I write the newsletter, I shoot the videos, put everything in, schedule it in, have a feedback loop. So this is self-improvement. I walked people through my entire content processing system. I gave people so much detail here that they could go ahead and build this themselves. Will they? No, probably not. In fact, I've had about 10 people now send emails or direct messages or in my private WhatsApp group say, hey, can you make this into a piece of software? Can you make this into a course? Can you help me to do this? Because again, most people are not going to do the work themselves. There's nothing wrong with that, but it means that there is an opportunity for you to take a process that you have in your head and to turn it into an AI product. Even if you give everything away, like I did last week, giving people step by step how to do this, they're still going to want to pay you for it. So that's what you're going to be looking for. Something that you run, a process like this, which is pretty complicated, but this is something that I've been running for months. So I now know how to formalize that into software and sell it to people. You have to find something similar in your day-to-day that's going to be valuable to other people in your industry. And that is where all of the work goes in. The work is not about setting up the AI and setting up a nice landing page and connecting payment processes, etc. That stuff, yes, I'm going to show you how to do it, but that's the easy part. The complex part is what is the process that is happening in the middle that takes an input, processes it in some way into an output that is valuable to your customer. That comes from here, your brain. This is what the AI can't do by itself. It needs you. So you're going to work with it. If you are looking for what that process, what that workflow is going to be, start with your own experience. That's going to be the best place. But one really cool way to do this, is a bit sneaky, but have a look at existing SaaS companies, software as a service companies. Have a look at all the features that they do, especially SaaS companies that you use. So if you are using a product, if you're paying a subscription, go and look at what they do and work out what the specific feature is that you could replicate for your particular industry. So for example, the one I was going to look at, we'll look at this one. Rocket Money, you've probably heard of, huge company, huge marketing budget. So they appear in every single podcast. It's hard not to hear of them. So they started pretty basically as a platform for managing subscriptions. So you could connect it to your bank account and it would check for recurring Netflix subscriptions, stupid games that your kids had subscribed for on your iPad, etc., and it would help you to remove those subscriptions. They have expanded from there. So managed subscriptions, financial goals, spending insights, credit scores, bill negotiation, budgeting, net worth widgets. Like they have built upon this basic idea and then gone out from there. And they have 10 million members, and I'm sure they are making very good money off the back of this. You do not, as a first-time entrepreneur, you do not need to replicate everything that a company like Rocket Money is doing. You need to look at something like this and think about how you use it and how other people in your industry, other people like you could use it, and think, okay, well, the important thing here is managing subscriptions. That is the basis. Could I build something like that? Could I build a stripped down version of that, which might be specifically for a certain demographic or a certain industry? Yes, you can. So here example is Vexly. I have no affiliation with this. I just looked for this and this is the first one that popped up. Vexly is basically that. They have gone ahead and they've created a stripped down version of Rocket Money, track your subscriptions without connecting your bank. So I think with this, you actually export a CSV from your bank, you chuck it into Vexly and it works it all out for you. But this is just like a stripped down version of Rocket Money. This is exactly what you can do. The pricing is $24 a year. It's pretty cheap. Lifetime is $40 a year. What they're doing is they have stripped it down to the core of Rocket Money and they have made it so you can get access to it and you're not paying any subscriptions, you're not paying anything at all, you're paying $40 a year. That's going to be $4,000. So if they're selling 100 a month, $4,000 a month, that's a decent amount of money. Obviously, they're not going to be making as much as Rocket Money. They're not making potentially millions and millions, hundreds of millions. But if you are an individual and you can sell a smaller stripped down product into a specific niche, into a specific market, at this kind of price, you can still do very well on a personal level. So let's say they are selling 5 a day. So 5 a day, that gives us 150 a month at $40 a pop. So about $6,000 a month, which would then be $72,000 a year, which is a salary. But this is the kind of thing that can be built pretty quickly, extremely quickly, because of artificial intelligence. So you're going to find something that you can pull out of a larger SaaS, something that connects with your own knowledge of your own industry and your own work, something that you could save a huge amount of time yourself with. You're going to productize that into something for your market. And your first product should be small. Do not look at a website like DocuSign and be like, okay, I need to build an intelligent agreement management, contract lifestyle management, iris agreement preparation, Navigator e-signature, electronic notarization, Maestro, web forms, and multi-channel delivery. Do not think that you need to build all of these features out of the bat if you were creating a new DocuSign. DocuSign needs to be disrupted, by the way, because a DocuSign is at its base a PDF signing company. That is not that complex. They have 7,000 employees and $3 billion in revenue. Could you create a stripped down version of DocuSign that is one-time payment instead of $10 or $25 per month? You could, and that would do very well. And you should create one for your particular industry so you can market it directly to them and say, hey, are you fed up of paying $25 a month to DocuSign for very basic PDF signatures? Here's mine. It's $50 one off. Easy marketing right there. So start with something small. Do not try to build absolutely everything that these multi-billion dollar companies have done, because they have multi-billion dollars. You do not. So don't try to compete with them. Create something small. So look for something that is very specific for one type of user group. Ideally, people who have a similar job to you, because that's going to give you the most insight. And you can, if you can use it in your job, they can use it in their job, and that's going to help them. Look for one painful input and one useful output. Don't try to solve all of their problems at the same time. Solve one of their problems very, very well. And I've got a few examples here, like a subscription tracker. So a bank list goes to subscription tracker. Again, not trying to rebuild Rocket Money, but to provide something very basic that does the important part of Rocket Money, which is looking for your subscriptions. Career coaching. So there's loads of CV companies out there, but ultimately you're running them through a process of coaching and collecting information in order to create a polished CV. Could you do a version of that specific to your industry based on your insider knowledge of that industry? Yeah. Would that be useful? Yeah, that would be really cool. Email sequence generator. So taking a bunch of notes, turning it into a series of emails. That's something very easy to build. AI readiness assessment, LinkedIn newsletter to LinkedIn repurposer for coaches, maybe an intake form that turns into an action plan. There's lots of things that you can build which are very, very simple, but high value to the end user. So for example, something that I've built and built various versions of this is some kind of AI readiness assessment. So the user is going to answer a set of questions. Basically, it's a form on the front end. And then all of that information is taken into my app and sent through various AI processes based on like marking schemas that I've created. And then it spits out a score in a nice looking dashboard. Very basic, very easy to make. You can make it in an hour, less than that. But it's a high value output for the business. And they get a personalized report. And then off the back of that, you can either charge money for that, or you can use it to capture leads into your business, and then you get them onto a sales call. Now we need to talk about the technicals a little bit. You need to think of the flow from one, the journey that your customer will go through, but then you also need to think about how you're going to build that. And often they're going in opposite directions. So notice here that the last thing here in my customer flow is actually saving their result into my database. When we are building, we often do it backwards, where we're building the database first, so we have somewhere for that to live and somewhere for that to sit, and then we build forward from there. So one of the last things you'll build when you are creating is going to be the sales page or the landing page, whereas that is the first thing that the customer sees. So you have to get used to working back to front in order to build for your customer. So understanding the flow in both directions, very, very important. So for your customer, what they see as a customer, as a client coming to you, they will see a landing page. That is basically a sales page or a page like this. This is the homepage of Rocket Money. This is basically a landing page which says, hey, this is what you get, this is what it does, etc., etc. Do you want to sign up? So that is a landing page. They will then have either, this is optional, but some way to log in, some way to create a user account that's going into your database, and then some way to pay. Now, how you do payment, up to you. We're going to keep it simple for now. So they log in, they pay, they are served up the assessment form in this particular case. They fill out their details in the assessment form. That will be then sent to artificial intelligence or not, and I'll talk about that in a moment, processed, and then give them a report. And then that report is saved into the database so they can come and access it, but also for you to have a record of all of your customer transactions in the background. So this is what it looks like for a customer. They're coming from the front to the back. When you're building, though, you're often going to have to build in the opposite direction. So here's how that product actually works under the hood. So the user arrives, they're going to arrive at a landing page. So I personally use Vercel. Vercel is basically a kind of a hosting site, but you can host your own. It allows you to deploy applications. Now, there are other ways to do this. This is the one that I personally use. You are then going to create login and payment, which we call auth, A-U-T-H, that is login, the ability to store usernames, passwords, encrypted passwords, etc. into a database. So personally, I use Supabase, S-U-P-A, as my database. Again, there are many different ways to do this. So they're going to log in, they're going to pay, they're going to have this input form. And then this is where the magic happens, the actual workflow inside of the application. So this is where you, as the expert in your field, as somebody in your industry, is actually going to build something that's non-generic. If you just said to ChatGPT, hey, build me a questionnaire that works as an AI readiness assessment, and then it spits out an answer, would it be able to do it? Yeah. Would it be good? It would be generic, probably. So what you're going to do is you're going to put all of your work into this part, making the process, the stuff that happens behind the scenes, you're going to make it awesome. So based on what inputs they give you and trying to get them to an output that is highly valuable for them, you need to work out what happens in the background. And this is a combination of their inputs combined with the prompts that you write and the workflows that you create in the back end, and connections to things like OpenAI's API or Claude. So you structure the answers, you apply rules, you put some prompt templates into the back end, it formats the output, and you can use artificial intelligence to do all of this for you in the back end. You can also hard code this so it doesn't actually go back and forward to an API, so you're not paying per generation. But it depends on what you're doing. If you are doing a process where like you're crunching some numbers and you don't actually need to send it to OpenAI, you don't need to send it to ChatGPT, great. So this, for example, Vexly, I'm not sure if this will in the background use AI. It probably doesn't need to. All it needs is a piece of code which will find recurring payments, and then it will put it into a nice dashboard for you. That doesn't require AI. That's just looking for recurring payments in a CSV file. That can be done programmatically, that can be done with a snippet of code. It does not require us to send it to ChatGPT. So this is optional, and it depends whether or not your process requires that. A lot of them do not. And just because you can use AI does not mean you have to. And then this spits out a results page. It could be a dashboard, it could be a PDF file, it could be a script that then you hop on the telephone with them and you go through it with them. You need to work out what that result looks like. And then everything is saved into the Supabase in the back end. So this is what the customer is going through: landing page, login, payment, assessment form, processing, report, saved results. But behind the scenes, that is, user goes onto a Vercel app or whatever you're hosting in, login and payment, input form, the workflow inside of the application, optionally being sent back and forward to some kind of AI, results page, and then everything is saved into your database. So the value is here. That is what I want to really get across to you. It's in the workflow and how the AI or how your app actually uses the information they give to you. Okay, in terms of the actual technical build, we're not going to go into this too deeply because we don't need to anymore. I just wanted to explain that you're going to have something called the front end. The front end is generally what the customer sees. So it's going to be the landing page, it's going to be login pages, it's going to be any dashboards they have, the form where they're inputting any information for you. That is the front end. That is what is served up to the customer, to the client. Then at the back end, you're going to have the data layer. So this is where everything's being stored. So you can use something like Supabase, you can use Firebase. These are basically databases that live in the cloud. I'll show you how to set them up. It's not that complicated. And this is where you're going to keep encrypted, securely, safely your users' details, any payment details, super important to keep that safe. Saved answers, saved reports, etc., sits in databases. And then in the middle, you have the processing or the logic layer, which, depending on what your application is the logic of how you get from the input they give you to the output that you have sold them. So that is where, again, all of the work will happen. Most of the value sits in that logic layer. In terms of how you actually build this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a prompt. If you make sure you're subscribed to the newsletter, aiwithkyle.com, in the next newsletter issue, which will be on, if you're watching this live, I'll give you a prompt. And you're going to take that prompt, you're going to put it into Codex, because Codex is free. Codex is from ChatGPT. It's also very good. You can use it on the free plan, you can use it on the $20 a month plan, and obviously on the higher plans as well. Codex will be able to help you build everything. I'm just going to write the prompt for you so that it walks you through the process of setting all of this up. So you're just going to copy that prompt, paste it into Codex, and it's going to start asking you questions, asking you what you want to build, asking you how you're going to be connecting the data layer and the front end. And I'll give you additional instructions about how you set all of that up, how you connect it all in, and then it will just get on with building for you. It's useful to know how all of this kind of connects together, but it's increasingly only useful in the sense that you have a large picture, a big picture sense of the structure. Increasingly, we can use the AI to do the actual detailed work. So especially for this first project, I'm going to give you the prompt. You're going to plug it in. It's going to do most of the work for you. It's going to ask for inputs. It's going to say, hey, I need you to log me into Vercel. Hey, I need you to log me into Supabase. And then it will just go and do the work for you. What you need to worry about is this bit in the middle, the logic layer. What is actually going to happen? What is the AI going to do in the middle that's going to be useful for your customer? That's the hard part. So you should be focusing there, not on the actual build. I'll give you the prompt that you're just going to copy and paste in, and that's going to help you build your first product. If you are watching this later on YouTube, check below this video and there's going to be a link directly to that as well. Cool, thank you. Hopefully this is enough to get you started on building your first product. Again, remember that just because other people could build this, they are not going to. What's different about you is you're actually going to take this information, you're actually going to do the thing. Very few people do that. Being high agency, being somebody who takes information and acts on it is increasingly a very, very important skill now that we have artificial intelligence, because now that we can do anything, it's kind of overwhelming. So learning how to apply all of that potential and actually build something, actually build an income, actually build some stability for ourselves is increasingly important. And again, that is why I created AI with Kyle, is to help you through what I think is going to be a rough few years if you have a 9-to-5. So make sure you are paying attention. Thank you so much, everybody. Cheers.